person goes off today. Appeals. We are about to begin the telephonic hearing of Michael M. Ceroli. First, I would like to confirm that all the participants are on the line, starting with the taxpayer and his representative. So, Mr. Ceroli?
Mr. Ceroli's here.
Thank you. Ms. Polis?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and then I have a Ms. Tanette.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Now, respondent, Franchise Tax Board, Mr. Cristobal.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Ms. Brosterhouse.
I'm also here. Sorry.
Okay, perfect. And now our panel, we have Judge Cho.
Here.
And Judge Day.
I'm present.
And then we have our lead judge, Stanley.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. We are all ready to begin the hearing.
Okay, this is Judge Stanley speaking, and whenever I do that, I'm going to state that again because the court reporter, the stenographer, is not on the. She can't see who she's talking to, who is talking at the moment. So you have to identify yourself every time you speak. And we all need to be even more careful that we speak one at a time and don't interrupt or talk over each other. Just a few preliminary matters, though, before we go on the record. We did have a pre-hearing conference, and at the pre-hearing conference, there was no objection to appellant's exhibits 1 through 10, and since then he has added 11, which is a map to a Rancho Los Migos National Rehabilitation Center, 12, which is a safety in the epilepsy monitoring unit PowerPoint, 13, which is an admission letter, 14, an email from Jeremy Streeter, 15, a Coldwater Clinical Associates letter, and 16, a San Fernando Valley Community Mental Health Center letter. Mr. Cristobal, do you have any objection to any of those documents being admitted into evidence?
This is Mr. Cristobal. No, Judge. I do not.
Okay, thank you. Then when we go on the hearing, we'll admit appellant's exhibits 1 through 16 and Franchise Tax Board's exhibits A through X and double A through double C. So I guess we should go straight on the hearing and on the record. And Ms. Alonzo, if you have any problem hearing anybody or don't know who is speaking, you can feel free to be the one to interrupt. This is the appeal of Michael M. Ceroli, case number 18113968. The date is March 17th, and the time is 10:04 a.m. The location of the hearing is supposed to be in Cerritos, California. However, while some of the panel is there, other people are meeting electronically from different locations, and I am in Sacramento. I'm Judge Teresa Stanley. The other panel members who are in the Cerritos office are Judge Daniel Cho and Judge Win Dang. I will be conducting the hearing, but all three of us will be equally participating, and we will all decide mutually on the outcome of this. I'm going to admit into evidence appellant's exhibits 1 through 16 without objection, and the Franchise Tax Board's exhibits A through X and double A through double C are admitted into evidence without objection. Does anybody have any other exhibits that they think they left out and couldn't have gotten before today?
No.
Okay.
No.
That was Mr. Cristobal. Thank you. So for the record, the issues that we talked about are whether the statute of limitations expired with respect to payments made for the 2010 taxes, and if so, should the statute of limitations be told based on financial disability of the appellant, Mr. Ceroli. Do we have the rep on the line with us?
Yes.
Ms. Polis, you're here?
Yes. I'm
Okay. So I'll ask you if that correctly states the issues.
Yes, it does.
Okay, and Mr. Cristobal, do you agree?
Yes, this is Mr. Cristobal. I agree.
Thank you. And one of the co-panelists wanted to make it clear or make sure that Ms. Polis, that Mr. Ceroli doesn't think that the Office of Tax Appeals can deal with the issue of whether or not the IRS money that was intercepted and handed over to the IRS, that we have any authority over that.
All right.
Polis?
Understood.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We had decided at the pre-hearing conference that we weren't going to have opening statements. So for witness testimony, Ms. Polis, which of the witnesses would you like to testify first?
I would like Mr. Ceroli to testify first. Mr. Ceroli, if you're ready.
Yes.
Okay, this is Judge Stanley again. You may proceed, Mr. Ceroli.
All right, Mr. Ceroli, I'm going to ask you to testify as to your financial stability. I would like to start from the beginning and your views as to how you qualify for financial disability. So, do you have any response to that?
Wait, hold on a second. I'm sorry, I forgot a very important step.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Ceroli, this is Judge Stanley again, by the way. Mr. Ceroli, do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Polis, you may proceed.
All right, Mr. Ceroli, as I said, I would like you to explain for everyone your financial disability, and you can start from the beginning. Mr. Ceroli.
My financial disability is I'm a seizure patient.
And when did you first learn that you were a seizure patient?
1997.
And how did this come about?
I'm a victim of a violent crime.
All right, did you receive treatment for your seizures after this violent incident?
Yes, I did. I was a victim of a violent crime, stayed in a hospital for over 10 days, St. Joseph's Hospital, and was in ICU for at least 2 days, and stayed in the hospital for about 10 days as a victim of that violent crime.
And so those seizures from that time, have they ever been cured? Have they ever gone away?
No, they have not. I've been a seizure patient since 1997.
And so are you actively undergoing treatment for your seizures?
Yes, I am.
Can you please describe what some of that treatment entails?
That entails constant medication I take twice a day, Lamictal, Topamax, and see neurologists throughout my life, and have been constantly trying to get disability for the last disability actually for more than 3 or 4 years, and have been in the process of doing so as we speak.
How has your seizure disability affected your daily life since the moment that you were affected with this condition?
It's changed my life drastically. There's numerous different ways it's changed my life. It's been a handicap.
Can you please describe, just in general terms, how this has affected you?
In general terms, it's first of all, it's been a situation that there's no way I could have been able to do my taxes. I'll leave it like that and get quite succinct.
What do you mean by not being able to do your taxes?
Well, there's no way I could mentally or physically do my taxes, and it's left me in a situation where it's left me in this situation here today.
Are you able to add numbers or keep track of numbers?
Addition and subtraction and multiplication is completely out of the question.
Are you able to keep track of your finances?
No.
Are you able to convey your finances to someone like a tax preparer or a tax professional of any sort?
Yes, I could deal with my taxes and sign away my taxes to an EA or a CPA. Jerry Streeter was in charge of all my taxes and has left me with this mess that I deal with today.
Now, in your communications with Jerry Streeter, were you able to communicate and actively participate in, relaying to him your finances or helping him at all with the taxes, giving him information that would help with his taxes?
Basically, I counted on Jerry Streeter to take care of all my finances and do all my taxes for years and years and years. Until he was negligent in doing so and left me this migraine headache to deal with, and has left me in this situation today. They had been sent directly to his office for years and years, and until he was neglected them and left me with this mess again, like I keep repeating.
When you say that your information regarding your taxes was sent directly to his office, can you describe how that happened?
Basically, the state and the feds mailed everything of mine that had to do with tax relations to his office directly. Due to a power of attorney that had been in his hands for over a decade or two. Since the passing of my father, I believe, in 1985.
All right, so you never, since this violent incident that caused the seizure condition, have you ever received tax documents from the state and attempted to do your own taxes, filed your own taxes, looked at your own tax documents?
No, never, Counselor. Not since 1997. And even previous to that head injury, the majority of my taxes were taken care of by Jeremy Streeter since, say, 1987, 1986.
All right, now I'm going to shift the conversation a little. Since 1997, have you been employed?
One more time.
Since your accident, have you been employed?
I tried to teach golf for a while, and I couldn't handle it. Physically, it was too much for me physically.
All right, did you try any other means of employment?
No. It was too much for me. Just the income that I received through Nick Ceroli as a musician. So no.
Can you please describe that?
That would be small amounts of income through Nick Ceroli as a musician.
All right, do you have any other sources of income?
Negative.
And why do you feel, even if it's just reiterating what you said, why do you feel like you don't have any other sources of income or other means of income?
There's no way I could maintain it physically and mentally.
What do you think would happen if you were to attempt to have employment?
Oh, I would have a physical and mental breakdown. There's no way I could maintain it.
Have you discussed this with doctors?
Yes, I've discussed it, and they have both agreed neurologically and physically it cannot take place.
All right. Is there anything that you would like to add for the judges or the STB to hear about financial disability or your condition?
No, not at this time, other than it's just quite frustrating. This has taken so long with this reimbursement. It's just added a great deal of mental stress to this situation.
All right. And I'm going to ask a bit about what you were supposed to undergo today, which ended up being canceled. What is this EMU that was included in the exhibits that you were supposed to undergo today?
It was a 6 or 7 day hospital stay that revolved around a state disability. And it was a 6 or 7 day hospital stay in, I believe, Rancho Cucamonga that was obviously scrapped and pushed aside due to COVID-19, which has taken over this state and has taken over this nation in this terrible virus that this nation faces. It would have been a 6 or 7 day hospital stay to verify further mental and physical state of your client.
All right. And what procedures were you going to undergo, if you knew?
Probably more MRIs and more EEGs and more physical and mental proof of my seizure condition for the state of California for disability purposes.
And had you undergone anything similar since your accident decades ago?
Oh, quite a bit.
All right. As of right now, I don't have any more questions for you. I don't know if the FTB or the judges have any questions for you.
Please.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Polis. Mr. Cristobal, do you have any questions for Mr. Ceroli?
This is Mr. Cristobal. I don't have any questions for Mr. Ceroli.
Thank you. Judge Cho, do you have any questions?
Hi, good morning. This is Judge Cho. I have a couple quick questions. Hopefully that will do things fast. Mr. Ceroli, when did you first realize that you needed to file a claim for refund in this action?
Your Honor, I could barely hear him. Did you ask him to speak up?
I'm sorry, let me try that again. Mr. Ceroli, when did you realize that you needed to file a claim for refund in this action?
For reimbursement, sir, and when I realized that my EA had failed me and I had not received back that reimbursement was probably about 3 or 4 months after I had asked him, should I be getting this reimbursement? And he neglected that answer and then told me, I thought you took care of it, Mike. And I was greatly let down upon that.
Around what time is that? Just curious.
Oh, I am not too sure at this point, sir. It was over 2 years ago. Probably more like 4 years ago. This has gone on for quite some time now, sir, and it's been quite a process. Over 3 years ago.
Okay. So you said you were in contact with your EA, Mr. Streeter, correct?
That's correct. He is gone now. He is no longer with us.
And when you were in contact with them, I'm assuming that you noticed that something had been taken away from you, or there's maybe funds levied. That's why you're referring to a reimbursement. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
How did you find out about the funds being taken away from you?
When I went to do some banking, they had levied some money and put a freeze on an account.
How often did you go to the bank to do banking?
At least once a month. Online, or at least once a month. Pay my rent. Something like that.
Okay, thank you. And so you noticed that that somebody had levied your account, and then you contacted Mr. Streeter to figure out how to deal with that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I believe that's when you and Mr. Streeter filed your 2010 tax return with the state of California. Is that correct?
Again, sir, I can barely hear you, but yes, sir. I believe so.
Okay. Those are all the questions that I have, Judge Stanley.
This is Judge Stanley. Thank you, Judge Cho, and I'll ask Judge Dang if you have any questions at this time.
Hello, good morning. This is Judge Dang. I just have one question for you, Mr. Ceroli, that touches upon what you spoke about earlier in the hearing today. You had mentioned that you were employed part-time as a musician, and that's how you are supporting yourself after this tragic accident, which had occurred to you in 1997. I'm sorry, assault in this case. My question is, you had noted that you were unable to perform any kind of math or handle any type of financial responsibilities, and I'm wondering, when these things do occur, as they occur in everyday, regular life, what do you do in those instances? If you have to, for example, I noticed that it appeared that you had sold real property in 2010. It looked like there may have been sales of securities or things of that nature. Is there some individual that you rely upon for that? What do you do in these situations?
I had a realtor, Jamie Pearson. This is my realtor, Jamie Pearson.
Okay, so anytime that you would be in a situation involving your finances, there's another individual that you could rely upon to handle that for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, this is Judge Stanley. I just have a follow-up for Mr. Ceroli. So we see in our record that we have exhibits that show that during 2012 you were mailed several notices by the Franchise Tax Board. Did you respond to those in any manner?
I never got those. They went to Jeremy Streeter.
So the address on Morrison Street in North Hollywood, that's Jeremy Streeter's address?
Morrison Street is my address. Old address.
Okay. So that notice would have gone to your former address. Were you still living there in 2012, or had you moved by then?
We had moved by then. I was not currently at that address.
Okay, and is your current address on Collins Street?
Affirmative.
Okay, so
Yes.
let's see what the date is on that notice.
and I'd just like to clear one thing up with these judges.
Go ahead.
I never made any money as a musician. Was never paid as a drummer. Was never paid as a musician. That was my father. He was a professional musician and was paid as so. I never was a professional musician. I was never good enough to be a professional musician.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any follow-up questions? Okay, hearing none of those, I'll go back to Ms. Polis. You have another witness that you would like to have testify at this time?
Yes, I have Teresa Tennant.
Hi, my name is Teresa Tennant. Yes.
Okay. This is Judge Stanley. I'm going to swear you in, if you don't mind. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So help me God, I do.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Polis. You may proceed.
Hi, Ms. Tennant. So, as I understand it, you are very familiar with Mr. Ceroli and you reside with him.
Yes, I do.
And how long have you known Mr. Ceroli?
I've known Michael for 17 years now.
All right, and at what point did you begin living with him?
About 15 years ago.
Okay, so you knew him after the assault that caused his seizures.
Yes, I did.
Now, as someone who lives with him, do you take it upon yourself or are asked by him to take care of everyday matters for him?
Yes, I do, and including holding him in my arms when he has those seizures.
And how often are these seizures?
When I first met him, he had him. I held him dozens of times in my arms. The stress of the economy, and so many times, like before, because he had to sell the house, he was having so many, too often, 2 to 3 a week at that time, seizures. And I loved him and held him in my arms. And now I still do.
Do you ever take care of any financial issues for him or anything that might have to do with money for him?
Well, I'm on disability as well. And we're trying to handle this as best we can. And like he said, his real estate agent handled the money in. And we've been trying to get by and get him on disability as well. This whole tax thing is a fiasco because I remember during this whole time calling Jeremy Streeter up, and he goes, "It's all right, Michael. It's all right, Michael." He was just an old man that just was not good. Was not a good man. And he shouldn't have been taking care of people's taxes at that time. Michael had no idea how bad his health had gotten and detrimental, and it ended up making this whole fiasco into a nightmare.
So for as long as you've known Mr. Ceroli, has he always relied on other people when it came to finances or money?
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to add about Mr. Ceroli's financial disability or your firsthand knowledge of that?
I know that he would love to work, but he can't. I know that he needs help. He needs his money back. Other than that, I just know that this is so unfair to do all this for his own money that was taken to him by the mistakes of by the disrespect and disregard of his EA, that he had no idea was doing this to Michael Ceroli, and Michael is going through all these loops of trying to find doctors for this, doctors back then. This is a nightmare, and we go to the judges and we ask for your guidance and for your we're appealing to you for your judgment that Michael didn't deserve that then, and he doesn't deserve this now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, judges. I do appreciate your time and listening to me.
All right, I'd like to turn it over to the STB or any judges that have questions for Ms. Tannett.
Okay, this is Judge Stanley. Mr. Cristobal, do you have any questions?
This is Mr. Cristobal. I do not have any questions.
Okay, Judge Cho, do you have questions?
Judge Show, no, I don't have any questions either.
Judge Dang, do you have any questions?
This is Judge Dang. I do not have any questions.
Okay, and this is Judge Stanley again. Ms. Tannett, I just had one question for you. Since you've known Mr. Ceroli so long, were you helping him to relay tax information to Mr. Streeter?
This is Teresa Tannett, and as I said, as I heard Michael said, we didn't get any tax information. It was Jeremy Streeter, and it was, as he said, in a couple years ago when the money was taken from the bank, that that was the first notice. But other than that, I don't know anything there was nothing sent to him. It was Jeremy.
Oh, okay, this is Judge Stanley again. May I just ask that question of Mr. Ceroli? Did anyone help you to relay tax information to Mr. Streeter? Because unless somebody gives it to him, he doesn't have the information that he would need to file your tax returns.
This is Teresa Tannett. I did, no. I'm sorry, you asked that of Michael. This is Teresa. Here's Michael.
One more time, Your Honor. What was the question, Your Honor?
Mr. Streeter would not have had information unless somebody gave it to him to prepare your tax returns. Did anyone help you to get information to Mr. Streeter so that he could prepare those returns?
Of course, Your Honor. If the information was sent to my residence, it would have been forwarded to Mr. Streeter, CPA, EA. If the information was not sent directly to Mr. Streeter, my CPA, it would have been sent to my residence and forwarded to Jerry Streeter, EA, or it would have been sent directly to Jerry Streeter's office, my CPA, in which he neglected it, therefore leaving it undone.
Okay. This is Judge Stanley. Thank you, Mr. Ceroli. Ms. Polis, do you have any additional witnesses?
No, those are my only two witnesses.
Okay, and Mr. Cristobal, I assume you have no witnesses today, correct?
This is Mr. Cristobal. That's correct. We have no witnesses.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to give the appellant the first opportunity to make a closing argument. So, Ms. Polis, you can proceed.
All right. So today we have Mr. Ceroli and Ms. Tennant testify as to Mr. Ceroli's financial disability. Financial disability includes when a taxpayer is unable to handle his own affairs because of mental or physical strain or documented disability. We had Mr. Ceroli talk about how his disability started, how it's affected his everyday life, how he absolutely cannot, under any circumstances, do basic math, let alone comprehend his taxes, how he relied on others for anything having to do with his finances, having to do with his taxes, how everything was forwarded directly to his tax preparer, how he didn't even see those documents most of the time. Ms. Tennant also testified to the same. And as for any income that Mr. Ceroli may or may not have received during the time of his disability up until now, he really didn't have control over that. He was not able to be gainfully employed. He was not able to handle finances in a way that benefited him. And with that, I would submit.
Thank you. I'll turn to Franchise Tax Board. Mr. Cristobal, you may proceed.
This is Mr. Cristobal. So today, the issue before us is whether the appellant met his burden of proof to establish that he filed a timely claim for refund for tax year 2010. To be even more specific, the issue really is whether appellant has provided an adequate physician's affidavit demonstrating his financial disability, which is necessary to suspend the statute of limitations. The 4-year statute of limitations to file a claim for a refund for the 2010 tax year began on April 15, 2011, and ended on April 15, 2015. Appellant acknowledges that he filed his claim for refund on March 10, 2017, which is outside the 4-year statute of limitations to file a claim for refund for the 2010 tax year. Appellant does not argue that a reasonable cause may toll the statute of limitations. Instead, appellant argues that he was financially disabled long enough to suspend the statute of limitations and make his otherwise untimely claim for refund timely. Revenue and Taxation Code, Section 19316, provides that the period for filing a timely claim for refund shall be suspended for any period in which the taxpayer is financially disabled. To be financially disabled, a taxpayer must show that 1, he was unable to manage his financial affairs because of a medically determinable physical or mental impairment that is either terminal or expected to last for a continuous period of no less than 12 months. And 2, there was no spouse or other legally authorized person to act on the taxpayer's behalf in financial matters. For the same statute, a taxpayer's financial disability shall be established in accordance with the procedures and requirements specified by the Franchise Tax Board. Now, in order to determine if a taxpayer was financially disabled, the Franchise Tax Board requires taxpayers to submit a proper declaration and a physician's affidavit. In the Presidential Opinion of the State of Gillespie, the Office of Tax Appeals held and confirmed that in order to establish financial disability, taxpayers must provide a physician's affidavit. This physician's affidavit must state the nature and duration of the impairment, the physician's opinion that the taxpayer was unable to manage his financial affairs, and the period in which the taxpayer was unable to manage his financial affairs. In this case, although appellant made several arguments regarding the nature of his medical condition and his inability to prepare his taxes, he simply has not provided provided the required physician's affidavit containing the essential information to demonstrate financial disability as required by law. On multiple occasions, in its opening brief, in its reply brief, in its additional brief, and most recently via phone discussions with appellant's representative, respondent has asked appellant for this form, and appellant has not been able to provide it. Therefore, appellant has not established financial disability, the statute of limitations was not suspended, and the claim for a refund remains untimely. Accordingly, appellant has not met his burden of proof to establish that he filed a timely claim for refund, and respondent's action must be sustained.
Excuse me, this is Teresa Cannon. Okay, may I please plead and make a statement on that regard?
Hang on, Ms. Cannon. That's not appropriate at this time. This is Judge Stanley. We're doing closing arguments, and I'll let your representative have a follow-up statement in a minute. Right now, I want to...
We tried getting that.
Ms. Cannon, please don't interrupt.
I'm sorry.
Girl, shut up.
We understand you're passionate about this, but we need to proceed efficiently and make sure everybody can hear everything. Judge Day, you have a question?
Hi, this is Judge Dang speaking. I have my question for the Franchise Tax Board relates to Revenue and Taxation Code Section 19316, and this would be Subdivision B1 that you had just read as part of your closing argument. You had stated that an individual taxpayer is financially disabled if that individual taxpayer is unable to manage his or her financial affairs. I'm wondering what the Franchise Tax Board position is as far as the word managing of the financial affairs. Is that would that be narrowly construed in the sense that the taxpayer himself would be unable to personally direct the financial affairs, or would it mean, for example, that the taxpayer, would it permit, for example, the taxpayer to manage affairs with the help of others?
This is Mr. Cristobal. Judge, as far as the requirement that the taxpayer or appellant demonstrate that they were impaired from being able to manage their financial affairs, as far as it relates to the statute and what's required, as long as that physician's affidavit has that box checked saying that the taxpayer was unable to manage their financial affairs in the physician's opinion, that would really be all that would be required.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And my follow-up question to that would relate to Subdivision B2 in this case. The phrase legally, other person is legally authorized to act on that individual's behalf. And again, I'm wondering what the franchise tax position would be as to the scope of what is legally authorized. Would that necessitate a power of attorney or some other form of signed document, or would it be sufficient if someone merely assisted the taxpayer?
This is Mr. Cristobal. In terms of RTC 19316, Subdivision B2, and so in terms of being legally authorized on an individual's behalf in financial matters, it would have to be a specific legal authorization, via power of attorney that specifically enumerates that that person would be legally authorized to act on the taxpayer's behalf. An EA, assumedly could have that authorization, but merely having the authorization to file returns doesn't necessarily grant that legal authorization. It would just have to be specific in a power of attorney.
Thank you so much. This is Judge Ding again, speaking again. I have no further questions.
This is Judge Stanley. Thank you. And I want to ask Mr. Cristobal one question too. Is it the Franchise Tax Board's position that without a physician's affidavit that states specifically the things that you said, even with other evidence of incapacity or disability, you're saying that without the affidavit that he has not proven that he's financially disabled?
This is Mr. Cristobal. Yes, Judge Stanley, per the law and OTA precedent, I mean, STB is not in a position to make any medical determinations or conclusions. So, per the law and OTA precedent, appellant must provide that physician's affidavit stating the points I mentioned previously.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Polis, I'll have you give us the last word on this.
Okay, so I will ask the OTA to reconsider the prior finding that a doctor needs to sign a 1564 form. I understand that some taxpayers who are disabled may be able to relate their financial information and communicate with their doctors enough so that a doctor will feel comfortable signing that form. However, in Mr. Ceroli's case, he does not have a grasp of his finances. He does not have a grasp of tax liability or anything relating to taxes, so much so that he forwarded all these documents to a tax preparer. He had people throughout this time of his disability handle everything financially for him. So I would argue that previous ruling does not apply to Mr. Ceroli. He is unable to sit down with a doctor and say, listen, this is my understanding of my finances. I'm unable to do them. He is not able to communicate that to a doctor enough for a doctor to sign this affidavit. And with that, I would submit.
Thank you. So this concludes our hearing today. After this hearing, the judges are going to meet and decide the case based on the documents and the testimony that was presented today. So the record is now closed, and we will mail the parties a written decision no later than 100 days after the close of the hearing today. And if there are no other issues, I'm going to adjourn. So thank you all for coming. We are adjourned.